In a quiet unassuming alley nestled between towering city buildings, life was anything but quiet for Hope, a blind mother cat who had learned to navigate the world with outside her blindness. Had not stopped her from surviving the harsh streets, nor had it diminished her spirit. Instead, it had sharpened her other senses to extraordinary levels. Her ears, always perked up, could detect the faintest sound, a rustling leaf, a footstep from blocks away, or even the subtle hum of a distant engine. Her nose was her greatest ally, capable of identifying food, people, or danger long before others could. Despite her challenges, Hope had found a kind of rhythm in her life. Recently, her world had changed with the arrival of her single kitten, Lucky, born in the corner of an old abandoned warehouse. Lucky was her miracle, her reason to endure. Though small and fragile, he brought a new sense of purpose to her existence each day. Hope would guide him, teach him the ways of survival, and keep him close, always listening for his movements and responding to his tiny meow with reassuring purrs. For the first few weeks of Lucky's life, everything seemed to be going well. Hope, despite her blindness, had managed to scavenge enough food to keep them both fed. The mother-son duo had a bond that was unshakable, built on trust and an unspoken understanding. But the streets were cruel, and every day was a battle for survival. One fateful afternoon, while Hope was resting in the shade of a dumpster, Lucky wandered a bit farther than usual. Curious and adventurous as all kittens are, he ventured out into the alley, chasing the shadow of a fluttering bird. His playful exploration soon turned into a nightmare. Around the corner, a stray dog, large, hungry, and aggressive, spotted the tiny kitten. Lucky, sensing the danger, froze for a moment before bolting toward the nearest escape. The chase was intense. Lucky darted under trash bins, squeezed through narrow gaps, and finally managed to find a small hole in a crumbling brick wall where the dog couldn't reach him. But the escape came at a price. Lucky had been bitten on his hind leg, and his small body was trembling with pain and exhaustion. The injury was severe. He was bleeding and struggling to move. As the sun began to set, Lucky summoned every ounce of strength he had left and started his slow journey back to his mother. His tiny paws left faint blood stains on the ground as he limped through the darkening alley. When he finally reached Hope, he collapsed at her side, letting out a faint, pitiful meow. Hope immediately sensed something was wrong. Her nose picked up the metallic scent of blood, and her ears registered the weak, uneven breathing of her kitten. Her heart ached as she gently nudged him, trying to comfort him. Louis's injuries were beyond her ability to heal. Desperation surged through her. She began to cry softly, her mournful meows echoing through the alley. As she tried to figure out what to do, blind though she was, Hope's instincts kicked in. She knew she had to find help. But where the world was a labyrinth of smells and sounds, most of which posed danger. But somewhere deep within her she felt a glimmer of hope, a memory of a scent she had once encountered, a scent that reminded her of healing and safety. Carefully, Hope picked up Lucky by the scruff of his neck. Her jaw firm yet gentle, she began her journey, guided only by her heightened senses and an unwavering determination to save her kitten. Each step was a challenge. The uneven ground, the distant sounds of traffic, and the occasional threat of other animals made her progress slow and cautious. The mother cat navigated through alleys, past dumpsters, and along quiet streets, her ears constantly swiveling to detect any approaching danger. Her nose worked overtime, sniffing the air for the faint scent of medicine she remembered from her past wanderings. Hours passed, but hope didn't stop her. Love for Lucky fueled her, giving her the strength to carry on despite the odd. Finally, just as dawn began to break and the first rays of sunlight illuminated the city, Hope found herself in front of a small house. The scent of antiseptics and herbs was unmistakable. It was the smell of healing. She carefully placed Lucky on the doorstep and began to meow loudly. Her cries filled with urgency and desperation. Inside the house, Carlos, a young doctor who had dedicated his life to helping both people and animals, was startled awake by the persistent sound. He rubbed his eyes, confused, and made his way to the door. What he saw when he opened it took his breath away. A blind mother cat sitting next to her injured kitten, looking up at him as if pleading for help. In that moment, Carlos realized that this was no ordinary encounter. The mother cat had come to him for a reason, and he knew he couldn't let her down. Gently scooping up both the mother and her kitten, Carlos carried them inside, his mind racing with thoughts of how to save the tiny life before him. Carlos brought the injured kitten and its blind mother into his small but cozy home, his heart racing with urgency. His home was modest, filled with the essentials and a few personal touches like framed photos of his late family and stacks of books on medicine and animal care. The aroma of fresh coffee lingered in the air, but Carlos's mind was solely focused on the fragile kitten in his hands. He placed the kitten gently on a clean towel on his dining table, his practiced hands quickly assembling his veterinary supplies. The mother cat, Hope, stood near by, her ears twitching at every sound. She couldn't see what was happening, but her instincts told her that this human was trying to help her. Soft, worried meow filled the room as she tried to inch closer to her kitten. Carlos noticed her agitation and spoke softly, his voice a soothing balm in the tense atmosphere. "It's okay, Mama, I'll do my best," he murmured as he examined the kitten. Injuries: the bite wound on Lucky's hind leg was deep and the kitten was weak from blood loss and the shock of the attack. Carlos cleaned the wound with antiseptic, his movements gentle but efficient. He wrapped the leg in a small bandage and administered a pain reliever, an antibiotic. Lucky let out a faint, pitiful meow, his tiny body trembling. Carlos's heart ached at the sight, but he knew he couldn't give up. Throughout the process, Hope remained attentive, her nose twitching as she tried to make sense of the scents and sounds. Carlos reached out to her, letting her sniff his hand before gently str in her head. Her fur was coarse and matted, evidence of the hard life she had endured. Yet despite her blindness and the fear she must have felt, she stayed close, trusting this stranger to save her baby. As the hours passed, Lucky began to stabilize. His breathing evened out and he managed to let out a tiny hopeful purr. Carlos smiled, relief washing over him. He placed the kitten beside his mother, guiding him toward her so he could nurse. Hope immediately lay down, her blind eyes scanning the room as if trying to locate her kitten by sound. Alone, when Lucky latched onto her, she began purring, a deep, comforting sound that filled the room. Carlos watched the scene, his heart swelling with admiration for the resilience of this little family. He couldn't help but wonder how many challenges Hope had faced to bring her kitten to safety. He decided then and there that he wouldn't just treat them and send them back to the streets. They deserved more, a chance of a better life. As Lucky rested, Carlos turned his attention to Hope. He noticed that her eyes, though clouded and unseeing, still reacted faintly to light. A spark of hope lit within him. Maybe her blindness wasn't permanent. He decided to examine her more closely, carefully lifting her onto the table. Let's see what we can do for you, Mama, he said softly. Hope remained still, her trust in this human evident. Carlos shone a small light into her eyes and performed a few basic tests. He realized that her blindness might be due to cataracts, a condition that could potentially be treated. The idea of helping her see again filled him with determination. It wouldn't be easy, but Carlos was no stranger to challenges. Over the next few days, Carlos dedicated himself to caring for Hope and Lucky. He researched treatments for feline cataracts, reaching out to colleagues and reading every article and study he could find. At the same time, he made sure that both cats were well fed and comfortable. Hope, though blind, seemed to understand that she and her kitten were safe. Her trust in Carlos grew with each passing day. Finally, the day came for Hope's first treatment. Carlos had prepared a specialized EY drop solution to soften the cataracts and scheduled a small procedure to improve her vision. It was a delicate process requiring steady hands and precise movements. Hope remained calm throughout, as if she knew this human was her a chance at a new life. After the procedure, Carlos wrapped Hope in a soft blanket and placed her in a quiet, dimly lit room to recover. Lucky, now gaining strength and confidence, stayed close to her, his tiny body a source of warmth and comfort. Carlos checked on them frequently, his connection to the two cats growing deeper with each interaction. Days turned into weeks, and slowly Hope began to respond to the treatment. The first time opened her eyes and reacted to movement. Carlos felt a lump in his throat. He waved his hand in front of her face, and for the first time, she followed the motion with her gaze. It was a small victory, but it meant the world. Hope's vision continued to improve, and with it her personality began to shine. She was no longer just a blind, struggling street cat. She was a mother with a fierce love for her kitten and a newfound curiosity about the world. Lucky, now a playful and energetic kitten, thrived under Carlos's care. His bond with his mother unbreakable. Carlos knew he couldn't part with them. They had become more than just patients, they were family. He officially adopted them, giving them a permanent home where they could live without fear or hardship. Watching Hope and Lucky together, Carlos felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. They had saved each other in ways none of them could have predicted. Carlos carefully observed Hope and Lucky in the days following Hope's cataract treatment. Her world, once shrouded in darkness, now shimmered with a faint light that grew brighter each day. At first, Hope moved tentatively, her head tilting and her ears flicking at every movement, but as her vision sharpened, so did her confidence. The first time she clearly saw Lucky, her reaction was something Carlos would never forget. The blind mother who had only known her kitten through touch, scent and sound now gazed directly into his curious little eyes. There was a flicker of recognition, a soft, deep connection that seemed to transcend the physical senses. Hope nudged Lucky with her nose before pulling him close with her paw, purring loudly as though to say, "I see you now. You're mine." Lucky, oblivious to the monumental change, continued his playful Antics he battered at Hope's tail, scampered across the floor and occasionally pounced on Carlos's shoelaces. Carlos found himself laughing more than he had in years. Hope, however, was no longer just a passive observer. She began to join in stalking Lucky with exaggerated caution before gently pouring at him. It was as if regaining her sight had unlocked a side of her that had been dormant, a playful, protective and fiercely loving spirit. As the weeks turned into months, Hope's eyesight continued to improve. Carlos marveled at her resilience and adaptability. She had gone from a blind stray struggling to survive to a confident, graceful feline who ruled the house. Her favorite spot became the windowsill, where she would sit for hours watching the world. She could now see for the first time. Lucky, now a few months old, grew into a spirited young cat. He followed Carlos everywhere, his curiosity boundless. Whether Carlos was reading, cooking, or working on his laptop, Lucky was always close by, climbing onto his lap or playfully swatting at his pen. Carlos often joked that Lucky was his little assistant, always ready to help in his own mischievous way. But it wasn't just the bond between Carlos and the cats that deepened. The bond between Hope and Carlos grew just as strong. Hope would often sit beside Carlos on the couch, her head resting on his leg as he gently stroked her fur. She seemed to understand that this man had given her Unlucky a new life, and her gratitude was evident in her every gesture. She would nuzzle his hand, rub against his leg, and even sit patiently beside him when he read aloud to them, as though she understood every word. One day Carlos decided to take a family photo, a simple snapshot to commemorate the journey they had all been on together. He set up his camera, placing Hope and Lucky on a soft blanket by the window where the sunlight streamed in. As he joined them, setting the timer on the camera, Hope leaned into him, her green eyes gleaming with affection. Lucky, ever playful, pounced onto Carlos's shoulder at the last moment, adding a touch of chaos to the otherwise serene scene. The photo captured more than just three individuals. It captured a story of resilience, love, and the miracles that happen when kindness meets determination. Carlos printed the photo and framed it, placing it on his desk as a daily reminder of how much his life had changed since that fateful day. Hope and Lucky's presence in Carlos's life brought him a renewed sense of purpose. He began volunteering at local animal shelters, sharing his knowledge of animal care and advocating for the adoption of stray and injured animals. Inspired by Hope's story, he even started a small blog sharing updates about her and Lucky's adventures and raising awareness about the importance of compassion toward animals. Over time, Hope and Lucky became minor celebrities in their community. Neighbors who had once ignored stray cats now stopped to leave food and water for them. Children would ask Carlos about the brave mother cat and her playful kitten, their eyes lighting up as he shared their story. As for Hope and Lucky, they continued to thrive. Hope, now fully sighted, took on the role of guardian with renewed vigor, keeping a watchful eye on Lucky as he explored their home and garden. Lucky, ever the curious kitten, grew into a strong, adventurous young cat, always testing boundaries but never straying too far from his mother or Carlos. The trio became inseparable, their bond a testament to the transformative power of love and kindness. Carlos often found himself reflecting on the day Hope had arrived at his doorstep, a blind, desperate mother seeking help for her dying kitten. It was a day that had changed all their lives, and he knew he would be forever grateful for the chance to be a part of their story. Hope's journey from darkness to light, Lucky's recovery and growth, and Carlos's rediscovery of joy and purpose were all parts of a greater narrative, one of resilience, connection, and the miracles that can happen when we choose to care.